This is the bottom section of the new elevated garden that I built back early spring. And I wanted to show you today what I have done to this section of the garden. This is an evolving part of the garden where we will have different plantings. And I'm doing a trial as to which plants would work well, which plants would be good to form a mixed perennial border. It'll have some shrubs and some tender annuals and perennials that would be good year in, year out. Toward the back side of this elevated garden, you would notice that it's my neighbor's property on the far side. And I needed to put a screen of some sort so that there's a little bit of a privacy between this section of the garden, the compost heap and the compost station that I built toward the end and the right side of the screen, and also between me and my neighbor. This property line or border is a long stretch that I needed to make sure these espalier pairs that I will plant are interspersed, evenly distributed. I plan on putting in 4 to 5 different trees that I'm excited to form into growing espaliers. What I'm doing here in this clip is I'm trying to measure and even out coming from the back of the garden, the back of the property line, from the compost heap. As I am planning on planting 2 pear trees, I want the distance and the measurements to be equal so that we can get a much better visual effect once these trees are planted into the ground. We measure twice, we measure 3 times, even 4 times to a 5th time. Gotta make sure we do it right, provide the proper screening and even distribution. It's easy to plant, but it's definitely not easy to uproot them and replant them. Having determined the proper distance from the compost heap, I used bamboo stakes to mark and place into spots where I will be digging holes for the post and the 2 planting holes for the pears. Alright, after having finished digging 4 holes, 2 for the posts and 2 for the pear trees that I will espalier, it is now time for me to stick in the pieces of wood that I will be using as posts. If I didn't have the already existing post by the compost heap, I would have dug 5 individual holes, 3 for the posts and 2 for the trees. It will make more sense later as you see the final product here. But right now, I am sticking into the ground 8-foot posts, 2 feet deep. That would leave me with 6 feet up above the ground, and that should be the ideal height that I'd like to grow and establish these espaliers as. Espaliers sometimes get a bad rap. Espaliers are often seen as a high-maintenance hedging of the landscape design world. Sure, the time for training and hands-on maintenance is more than your standard tree or shrub, and they are often seen in the most formal and grand of gardens. But really, in my experience, espaliers can work in almost any garden type, big or small, formal and informal, grand and modest. My goal here in our property is to create garden rooms where espaliers will be the border feature plants that would seclude areas from one to the other and hopefully provide a whole lot more interest vertically and provide more fruit. Ever since I built this garden bed along the property line between me and my neighbors, I've always envisioned having something vertical that will grow, a living frame, a living fence, if you will. There's something about a living fence that just draws my eye in. Maybe it's the simplicity, maybe it's the restraint, the uniqueness, not really sure exactly what, but whatever it is, it does work for me. Alright, so getting back to what I was doing here, I am putting in the elements that I need in order for this espalier project to work. I got 2 posts in. The 3rd post would be the post by the compost heap. I've already planted 1 tree in and it's fairly simple. On this clip, I am planting in and putting in the ground the 2nd tree. These, by the way, are what's called Ayers pears. These are the ones that I've got on sale at my local big box store. Easy pears and easy trees to grow, especially in this unique environment and climate here in the south. Fall is the best time to plant trees because the soil is still warm. While the air temperature is slowly cooling, soil warmth allows for more roots to really grow and get this baby established between now into the winter and early spring. So this should give it a good start in life. After an hour of repositioning, planting, and measuring, this is what it looks like right now. 2 trees in between 3 posts. And what we will do in the next clip is slowly form the branches, the main branches that would act as the laterals. And I'll explain to you why we have to do that and what really constitutes having laterals and having secondary growths that will really form all those spurs where we will get the fruits from. Before anything else, and after planting the tree, I made sure that I placed stakes right beside that tree. Staking a tree is an important part of the planting routine. It helps it to establish a stable root system, and it prevents it from swaying all over the place, uprooting it, and not really giving it a healthy growing environment. I used some spare pieces of wood that's been cut to the appropriate length for anchoring the tree against strong winds. After securely attaching the stakes to the trees, I returned to the base of the tree and topped it off with a thick layer of mulch of well-rotted organic matter. As many of you guys know, putting a heavy and thick layer of mulch on top and along the perimeter of the base of the planting area will conserve water and, more importantly, for weed prevention. Okay, now that we got the trees all staked up, mulch already placed on the base of the trees, it is now time to do the fun bit of this project. This is now to form the 2 layers, the 2 tiers, where we will have horizontal branches coming off from the main branch. I'm placing a 10-foot length of bamboo right along the side in order to form the structure and the skeleton where all these branches will be tied down to. The plan here is to have 2 branches, 1 pair, onto these bamboo frames for each tree right on the bottom rung. And what we will do is determine branches that we will tie down, and off of the branches that we will turn horizontal, little vertical plants will grow from the leaf nodes, and these nodes are where the spurs are going to originate from. Alright, having checked the level of the first rung, the bottom rung bamboo, I proceeded to putting another bamboo horizontal rung on top, and this will form the top layer, the top tier for the espaliered branches that I've gone ahead and tied down onto the bamboo. You can see clearly how these young, tender branches can be easily manipulated and tied down to any frame that you would like. As I mentioned earlier, I would like this project to form a horizontal T, which is also known as a horizontal cordon. Again, the branches are trained horizontally along an evenly spaced bamboo stake. It's technically called a cordon because it consists of a main stem with short fruiting spurs tied to a fence, or in this case again the bamboo. Much similar to how I grew the climbing rose on our property, setting any branch on a horizontal is the best way in order to trigger small plants and small buds to form along the leaf nodes. What happens here is as the tree grows, sap will come from the roots up the trunk and into these horizontal branches. These hormones that are located on the leaf nodes will now get stimulated to form vertical branches. Essentially, these individual vertical branches will now form as little plants. They are little plants growing along the length of the horizontal, the lateral that we've just placed and tied right on the bamboo. By the way, for the video on my climbing roses, how I trained them and how I placed them right on top of our pergola, I provided you guys with a quick reference card right on the corner of this screen, and also there is a link on the description box below. So far so good. I've gotten all these tender branches manipulated and tied down onto the bamboo, and hopefully as time goes on, they will continue to grow, continue to be healthy, and we will have many vertical branches growing from the leaf nodes. The more leaf nodes we get on any major branch, the better it will be, because that's going to make the vertical growth thicker. We will have more spurs, producing more fruits in the near future. Espaliers really do give us a lot of pleasure in our garden. Not only does it provide the practical screening that we need, privacy from the neighbors, it gives us fruit. It also gives us that nice visual interest that adds that vertical structure in key parts of our garden. As I said earlier, we plan on building more garden rooms, and using the espalier technique to separate section in one garden area from the other would be the best solution for this garden conundrum. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. It is a basic primer on how I build, grow, and create our espaliers here on the property. Hoping that you learned something new and hoping that you would consider putting an espalier or two in your property as well. In future vlogs, I will give you an update on how this section of our property, this used to be the problem area of our garden, a waterlogged area that really needed a good revamp. This year, I've devoted a lot of time in building this side of the garden. It turned out pretty well, and having these espaliers to provide that screening really is just the icing on the cake. I'll give you updates on how this has gone 6 months later or a year later, promote more spurs, how we can get pruning done, winter pruning and summer pruning. There is a video also of a step over espalier that I have done and showed you guys in the past, including our original more than 4-year-old pair of Gravenstein apples that I turned into espaliers when we first moved into our property. Lastly, I couldn't get to the end of this video without saying hello and thank you to the new subscribers that I have on the channel. 2 weeks of not being on, and really surprised every day I get new subscribers, which is happening more and more regularly. So welcome guys, thanks for the trust, and thank you for allowing my startup YouTube channel to really go viral, and I appreciate that. And to you guys who've stumbled on the channel, welcome to Acorn Hill. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Put your comments on the comment section. Tell me if I'm doing things right, especially if I'm doing things wrong. Let's have a conversation about them. For now, this is Louie. Look after yourselves, guys, and we'll see you back here in Acorn Hill on the next video. Bye-bye for now.